Imagine a single torpedo dropped from a biplane so slow, so outdated that even its pilots called it a flying antique, changing the course of naval warfare forever. Now, picture the most powerful battleship ever built, a steel beast roaring across the Atlantic, certain of its own invincibility, brought to its knees not by strength, but by fate, and by something everyone thought couldn't possibly win. This isn't just a story about ships and torpedoes. It's a story about pride, luck, and a moment that rewrote history itself. This is the downfall of the Bismarck. In the icy waters of the North Atlantic, May 1941, a steel giant moved like a shadow through the fog. The Bismarck wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol, a statement of Nazi ambition on the high seas. Launched in 1939, it carried the firepower of 8-inch guns, thick armored plating, and engines that could push it faster than most could imagine. To the world, the Bismarck seemed invincible. The British Admiralty knew the stakes. If the Bismarck reached the Atlantic shipping lanes, convoys critical to Britain's survival could be destroyed with impunity. And yet, even with the most sophisticated intelligence and reconnaissance, the ship's sheer size and speed made it a nightmare to track. The Germans themselves believed in the Bismarck's untouchability. Its captain, Ernst Lindemann, was a man of precision and pride. He knew the ship inside out, every corridor and compartment. The crew was drilled for efficiency, ready to face anything the Allies could throw at them. And for a short time, the Bismarck lived up to its reputation. It moved through the Atlantic like a shadow of war, sinking HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, in a single terrifying salvo. News of Hood's destruction sent shockwaves through Britain. There was disbelief, horror, and a growing determination. The Royal Navy would hunt this monster at all costs, and the chase that followed would become one of the most intense naval manhunts in history. But even as fleets mobilized and the net tightened, no one anticipated that the Bismarck's undoing would come from the skies, and not from sleek modern aircraft, but from a squadron of slow, antiquated biplanes, the ferry Swordfish. The Royal Navy's pursuit of the Bismarck was relentless. Every ship, every plane, every possible asset was mobilized. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and reconnaissance aircraft scoured the Atlantic, forming a net tighter than any trap before seen at sea. Yet the Bismarck was cunning. It used the fog, the endless horizon, and its own speed to slip through patrols like a phantom, taunting its hunters with each evasive maneuver. British intelligence, however, had a critical advantage: radio intercepts. The Germans had a habit of transmitting messages with striking confidence. Using this, the Admiralty began piecing together the ship's course. The hunt became a chess game across the Atlantic, each side anticipating the other's move. For days, the tension was almost unbearable. Every lookout, every radar ping, every sighting could mean the difference between life and death, or the destruction of the Bismarck itself. Amid this high-stakes chase, the Royal Navy made a risky but crucial decision. They would attack the Bismarck from the air. But what planes could take on the pride of Nazi naval engineering? Fighter bombers were scarce, and the carrier-based aircraft available were far from the cutting-edge machines of modern warfare. Enter the ferry Swordfish. On paper, these planes seemed laughable, slow, outdated, even fragile. Pilots joked that their biplanes looked more suited for a barnstorming show than a deadly assault on the ocean's largest battleship. But what they lacked in speed and armor, they made up for in precision, courage, and the ability to deliver a single, devastating weapon: the torpedo. The stage was set. Against a backdrop of stormy seas and tension thicker than the steel of the Bismarck's hull, these humble swordfish pilots prepared to take on a monster. The world would soon witness an extraordinary moment, a clash between David and Goliath, with the Atlantic itself as the arena. On May 26, 1941, the moment that would change history arrived. From the deck of HMS Ark Royal, a squadron of Fairey Swordfish biplanes began their slow, trembling climb into the gray, storm-laden skies. To any casual observer, these planes seemed almost absurd. Canvas wings flapping in the wind, engines sputtering, hardly capable of cutting through a stiff gale. Yet within each cockpit sat a pilot and crew trained for one deadly purpose: to stop the Bismarck. The journey was treacherous. Winds ripped across the Atlantic, waves crashed like mountains, and the spray stung the pilots' faces as they approached their target. The Bismarck, massive and gleaming, cut through the ocean below like a moving fortress. Anti-aircraft guns bristled along every deck, ready to tear the Swordfish from the sky. Every second, every maneuver could spell death. And then, almost impossibly, the first attack began. The Swordfish swooped low, weaving through a hailstorm of German fire. Torpedoes screamed toward the water, each one carrying the fragile hope of a single decisive strike. Most missed, fizzling harmlessly against the relentless steel of the battleship, but the pilots pressed on with a courage that seemed beyond human. Then it happened. A torpedo found its mark. The massive Bismarck shuddered as the torpedo struck her stern. The damage wasn't catastrophic yet, but when the smoke cleared, it became horrifyingly clear. The Bismarck's rudder was crippled. The mighty ship that had once seemed untouchable could no longer steer. It was trapped, adrift, and for the first time, vulnerable. The Swordfish, those slow, obsolete planes, had done what no battleship, no submarine, and no other aircraft had been able to achieve. With a single, perfectly placed torpedo, they had changed the course of the Atlantic War. The Royal Navy now had a chance to finish what they had started, to hunt down and destroy the monster that had haunted them for days. But the story wasn't over yet. The chase would continue, and the Bismarck, even crippled, would not go quietly into history. With its rudder crippled, the Bismarck became a drifting fortress in the cold, gray Atlantic. Captain Lindemann and his crew, once confident and untouchable, now faced a terrifying reality. They were no longer masters of the sea. Every passing hour brought the Royal Navy closer, tightening the noose around the once mighty ship. The Allies moved with relentless precision. Battleships like HMS King George V and HMS Rodney, along with cruisers and destroyers, converged on the Bismarck's position. The Germans knew their time was limited. The massive ship, a symbol of invincibility just days earlier, could barely maneuver, a sitting target in the endless ocean. Despite the imminent doom, Lindemann refused to surrender. The crew prepared for battle, manning guns, bracing for impact, and steeling themselves against the inevitability of destruction. Smoke and fire now replaced the calm confidence that had once defined the Bismarck's decks. It was a scene of chaos and heroism intertwined. Sailors fighting not just for survival, but for honor in the face of overwhelming odds. The engagement was brutal. Shells slammed into the hull, explosions shook the decks, and the deafening roar of artillery filled the air. Even as the ship listed and the water rose around them, the crew continued their grim duty. The Bismarck's final moments were marked by both tragedy and courage, a testament to the human spirit under unimaginable pressure. But the Swordfish Torpedo had set everything in motion. Without that single, precise strike to the rudder, the Royal Navy might never have caught up. It was a stark reminder that even the mightiest can be felled by a seemingly small, almost insignificant force. A slow, awkward biplane had turned the tide, proving that determination, skill, and a single critical hit could change history forever. The Bismarck's fate was sealed, and yet, in the hearts of both the hunters and the hunted, the story of that ship would linger as a legend of the sea, courage, and the thin line between invincibility and vulnerability. By the early hours of May 27, 1941, the Bismarck's doom was unavoidable. The Royal Navy had encircled it completely. Every inch of the Atlantic seemed to echo with the sounds of impending destruction, the distant thunder of battleship guns, the roar of engines, and the relentless pounding of waves against steel. The crippled Bismarck, once a terror of the oceans, struggled futilely to move. Its rudder, shattered by that tiny swordfish torpedo, left it vulnerable to every attack. Shells tore through the decks, fire consumed compartments, and yet the crew fought with unwavering resolve. In those final hours, the ship became more than metal. It became a symbol of courage in the face of overwhelming force. History would remember the final moments with grim fascination. Some accounts say Captain Lindemann gave the order to abandon ship, while others suggest the crew stayed until the very last, manning guns even as the water rose around them. By the afternoon, the Bismarck began to sink beneath the waves, a giant swallowed by the ocean it once dominated. Yet it wasn't just the sinking that mattered, it was the lesson left behind. The Bismarck had seemed invincible, a floating fortress of Nazi power. Yet a slow, obsolete biplane had changed everything. A single, perfectly executed torpedo strike had determined the outcome of one of the most dramatic naval chases in history. It was a story of strategy, bravery, and the unpredictable nature of war. Proof that no matter how powerful, no one is truly untouchable. Even today, naval historians marvel at the event. The Swordfish pilots, once mocked for their antiquated aircraft, became legends. Their courage turned the tide of the Atlantic War and cemented a dramatic moment in history. A reminder that audacity and skill can triumph over raw power, and that sometimes the smallest actors make the biggest difference. The sinking of the Bismarck resonated far beyond the cold waters of the Atlantic. For the Allies, it was a decisive victory, a morale booster in a war that often seemed endless and grim. The Royal Navy had not only eliminated a strategic threat, but had demonstrated the power of determination, intelligence, and audacity. One small squadron of fragile biplanes had shifted the balance of naval warfare, proving that ingenuity could overcome sheer brute force. For Germany, the loss was a devastating blow. The Bismarck had been more than a ship. It was a symbol of Nazi naval might and propaganda. Its destruction sent shockwaves through the Kriegsmarine, forcing a reassessment of strategy and a recognition of the vulnerabilities even the most formidable weapons could not escape. The pride of the German Navy had been undone not by overwhelming firepower, but by precision, courage, and the unexpected factor of human daring. The Swordfish pilots, once underestimated, became legends. Their bravery, flying into a storm of anti-aircraft fire in planes considered obsolete, inspired generations. Naval historians still study their tactics, emphasizing how audacity, coordination, and perfect timing can achieve the seemingly impossible. The event also left a lasting legacy in military strategy. No weapon is truly invincible, and sometimes the most unlikely heroes can change history with a single, decisive act. Today, the Bismarck rests on the ocean floor, a silent monument to both human ambition and human fallibility. Its story, entwined with the courage of the Swordfish pilots, remains a vivid reminder of the unpredictability of war. It teaches us that even the greatest of machines can be undone by a combination of strategy, skill, and bravery. In the grand tapestry of history, the Bismarck's final moments are not just a tale of destruction. They are a story of resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring human spirit. History remembers it vividly. The mighty can fall, the underestimated can rise, and sometimes a slow, fragile biplane can rewrite the course of a world war. If this story gave you chills, made you rethink history, or left you in awe of human courage, then hit that like button. Subscribe to World War Ashes for more deep dives into history's turning points, and leave a comment telling us which moment in history shocked you the most.
Every story, every battle, every decision shaped the world, and we'll uncover them all, one incredible story at a time.